Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. I thought I was just building a house, remote mountain ridge, fresh permits, clear land, my slice of peace. Then 6 SUVs rolled in, neon vests, clipboards, smiles like knives. "You're trespassing," she said. That's when I realized this wasn't construction. I'd been building homes for 15 years. Clients, deadlines, suppliers, inspectors. I'd seen it all, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what was coming. After my divorce, I told myself I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to thrive. No more crammed condos, no more splitting garden gnomes in court. I wanted a space that was mine, just mine. Somewhere I could wake up, sip coffee in silence, and stare out over nature without HOA bulletins duct taped to my door. It took over a year to find the right land. Tucked up on a private slope in the Sierra Nevada range, about an hour from the nearest town, it had a panoramic view of Lake Penrose that looked like it had been painted for a high-end whiskey commercial. The owner, a Vietnam vet named Gerald, was in his late 70s, sharp as a nail, and harder to negotiate with than a steel-beamed contractor union. We spent months going back and forth, but finally I made him an offer he respected. We shook hands, signed through a licensed notary, filed it with the county, and I walked out with a folder full of notarized papers and my name on a parcel of heaven. I didn't just buy land. I went through the bureaucratic gauntlet: soil tests, environmental impact studies, zoning clearance, wildfire risk assessment, slope stability evaluation, the whole developer's buffet. When that final permit came through, it felt like I'd beat a video game on nightmare difficulty. The crew broke ground on a Monday. By Friday, the foundation was in. We had the rebar grid ready, foam forms in place, the septic tank guy scheduled, and the first lumber delivery stacked and shrink-wrapped like Christmas in July. I hadn't been this excited about anything since I bought my first compound miter saw. Then came Saturday. I was standing next to my foreman going over framing angles when a caravan of SUVs rolled up like a suburban invasion. Out poured 6 people in neon vests, hard hats, and clipboards. They looked more like they were ready to audit a farmer's market than inspect a construction site. Leading the pack was a woman with the kind of confidence that came from years of bossing around committees and mispronouncing quorum. Shoulder-length blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, and a fake smile so tight it looked like her face had a mortgage. She extended her hand before I even said a word. Karen Dupre, president of Fern Crest Highlands, HOA, didn't take her hand. "Hi, you're, a bit far from home, aren't you?" Karen looked around like the view offended her. "Actually, this land falls under our community conservation boundaries. You're in violation of protected area ordinances. Construction must cease immediately." I blinked. I bought this land legally from the previous owner. Not only is it not in your HOA, it's in an unincorporated part of the county. I've got the deed, permits, and a damn GPS to prove it. She smiled like a rattlesnake stretching. You may think that, but the parcel was included in the 2006 HOA expansion agreement. It's a clerical error that it's not in the county's online system. We have internal records, and until this is clarified, all development must stop. You're building on land you don't legally control. I gestured toward the construction documents on the folding table next to the trailer. Everything's here. Parcel ID matches county GIS. Want to take a look at the topo survey? She didn't. Karen turned to one of her clipboard henchmen who began snapping photos of my site like we were a crime scene. One guy started measuring distance from the edge of the slope, mumbling something about watershed impact. That's when I felt the slow simmer start in my chest. "You're trespassing," I said flatly. Karen tilted her head. "We're conducting a compliance inspection." "There's nothing to inspect. This is private property. You're not a governing body. You're a damn HOA for a subdivision a mile down the hill." Her tone shifted like she'd been waiting for me to say exactly that. "Mr. Manning, I'm afraid we'll be escalating this to our legal committee. You'll be hearing from our attorney." She left me a copy of what looked like a homeowner's newsletter article about reserved parcels and viewshed integrity. As they drove off, one of her people turned around and took a picture of me. I smiled and flipped him the bird. Back at my trailer, I pulled up the deed again, this time with a fresh level of paranoia. Nope. No easements, no HOA tie-ins. Parcel was carved out in the 70s, long before Fern Crest Highlands even existed. The property line map looked like a fortress wall between me and their McMansion kingdom, but something about her smugness stuck with me. Karen didn't sound like someone bluffing. She sounded like someone who believed she owned the damn mountain. I poured a cup of lukewarm coffee from the thermos and sat on the tailgate of my truck, watching the sun dip over the treetops. For a second, I wondered if I'd made some kind of paperwork mistake. But I knew better. I'd built my entire career on avoiding that kind of screw-up, which meant either Karen was delusional or this was going to get ugly. By Monday morning, the mood on site had shifted from enthusiasm to tight-lipped tension. I could feel it in my crew, shoulders hunched, conversations quieter, as if waiting for the next shoe to drop. I tried to keep morale up, joking about HOA SWAT teams and suburban militias, but even I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wasn't done. I didn't have to wait long. That Thursday, a county sheriff's cruiser pulled up with dust trailing behind it. 2 deputies stepped out, friendly enough but businesslike, and handed me a piece of paper clipped to a temporary restraining order. Court-issued stop work order, pending legal review of property rights, one of them said, like it was just another parking ticket. They weren't hostile. They even apologized for the inconvenience. But the message was clear. All construction must cease. Immediately. I stared at the order, scanning the case number, the court seal, the stamp. I knew the process well enough to recognize that someone had pulled strings to get this pushed through with warp speed, and that someone's name was almost certainly spelled Karen. By sunset, my framing team had packed up their tools. The concrete guy left me a voicemail saying he was postponing the next pour until the legal weirdness got sorted. My supplier sent me a polite email freezing the next shipment of lumber pending confirmation of ownership. My bank naturally called asking if everything was still viable. I knew what Karen was doing. She wasn't going to win in court, so she was playing the game of perception, dragging my name through the mud until my investors lost patience and my clients lost faith. And she had help. By Saturday, I was seeing posts on local Facebook groups, next-door threads, and even a shady blog page labeled Protect the Highlands. My name was plastered across headlines like Illegal Mansion Threatens Fragile Watershed and Private Contractor bulldozes conservation land. The pictures were all taken from weird angles to make my site look like a mountaintop strip mine. One of the posts quoted a community member saying, "He's destroying a protected corridor. We can't let some outsider profit while ruining the landscape we all share." Right. Because pouring a foundation on a cleared slope with permits was apparently environmental terrorism now, I decided to meet the smear campaign head-on. I uploaded a copy of my deed, parcel ID, and permits to my website and posted a short, no-nonsense statement. This land was legally purchased. It is not HOA property. All claims to the contrary are false and defamatory. Construction is temporarily paused due to a disputed claim currently under review. I will not be bullied out of my rights. But the rumors didn't stop. If anything, they got more coordinated. That's when she showed up. Late Monday morning, while I was reviewing new soil core data with my engineer, a silver Subaru pulled into the gravel lot. A woman in her 30s stepped out. High boots, puffy vest, oversized sunglasses, camera bag slung across her shoulder. She introduced herself as Elizabeth Harper, said she was writing a story for Lakeview Living, a regional lifestyle blog. She had a press badge around her neck and a voice that sounded like she'd been to enough college debates to weaponize passive aggression. "Mr. Manning, I just want to present your side. I think people need to see the human element behind this story. A builder following his dream. That sort of thing." I wasn't in the mood for PR, but she seemed professional, polite, persistent in a very practiced way. So I gave her a short walking tour, showed her the blueprints, the view corridor, the erosion control layout, the soil netting. She took pictures, asked smart questions, sometimes a little too smart. She wanted to know specifics. When I had submitted my permits, which agency handled slope integrity, where the water runoff exited near Fern Crest Highlands. I chalked it up to thoroughness. She even brought coffee the next day. Said she needed a few more photos for aesthetics. My guys liked her, thought she was cute, even flirty. I thought she was overreaching. But hey, maybe not everyone in this godforsaken range of HOA influence was out to gut me. That illusion lasted 48 hours. I was in my trailer, elbows deep in receipts and emails when I stepped outside for a call. Left her by the map layout for 2 minutes, tops. When I came back, she was gone, and so was a thin folder of photocopies I'd left by the drafting table. I checked the table. Nothing. Checked the trash. Empty. went to the CCTV monitor over my work desk and scrubbed back 5 minutes. And there she was, on video, quiet as a whisper, slipping the file into her bag, glancing around like she was casing a damn jewelry store. I froze the frame, zoomed in. The reflection in the glass cabinet behind her showed just enough of her face at the right angle. I took a screenshot and ran it through a reverse image tool. Nothing for Elizabeth Harper, but the algorithm matched that face to a local neighborhood event photo from last year. Fern Crest Highlands HOA fundraiser. President Karen Dupre with community leadership team. Same damn face. Lighter hair. Different glasses. Same fake smile. She had been on my site, in my trailer, digging through my materials. Undercover Karen in disguise. I sat down hard on the cot, laughing like someone who'd just seen their enemy in clown makeup robbing a bank. Oh, you absolute psychopath. This wasn't just petty HOA hell anymore. This was war. After discovering that Karen Dupre had walked straight onto my site under a fake name, rifled through my documents, and slipped away like a bad movie villain, I didn't get angry. I got strategic. The next morning, I drove straight down to Auburn and met with Nina Baxter, a real estate and land use attorney I'd worked with once before, back when a flood zone misprint nearly cost me a contract. She was the kind of lawyer who wore denim jackets to depositions and had an actual sword hung on her office wall. No joke, it was engraved, Lex Est Ferrum, law is the blade. After explaining the whole HOA circus, including the court-issued stop work order, the social media smear campaign, and Karen's little undercover espionage stunt, Nina didn't blink. She just started typing. "Here's what we're going to do," she said. 1. We file for an emergency injunction to reverse the stop work order. 2. We submit a formal discovery motion to demand the documents HOA used to file that order. 3. We dig into every record this HOA has ever touched until we find the rot. She paused. Also, you're getting cameras. Everywhere. Within 2 days, my site looked like a damn security bunker. Every entrance, trailer, and material stack had a motion-sensitive camera. We wired everything into a secure cloud. Nina even brought in a forensic document examiner out of Sacramento. Meanwhile, I sent a polite email to Elizabeth Harper thanking her for her visit and CC'd it to Karen's real HOA address just to let her know I knew. But that was just one front. Nina wanted more. "We need someone inside," she said. "Someone who's seen the guts of that HOA from the inside. Their documents, minutes, expenditures, email chains." I laughed. "What, you want a mole?" "I want a whistleblower." 3 days later, she found one. His name was Tommy Goodwin, and he'd been the HOA's treasurer for 3 years before abruptly resigning last fall. Turns out, Karen had forced him out for pushing back on some mysterious community boundary expansion funds she couldn't properly account for. He'd signed a non-disclosure agreement, but never filed it with a notary, which meant it wasn't legally binding. The moment Nina explained that to him, he looked like someone who'd just been handed a loaded shotgun in a bear attack. Tommy had kept records. All of them. Financials, emails, even screenshots of internal Slack conversations from the HOA board. He'd stored them in a zip folder labeled K Degenerate on a hard drive he'd hidden inside a broken printer in his garage. No, seriously. Over the next several nights, Nina and I combed through the files while eating takeout on the hood of my truck under a bug zapper. The more we read, the worse it got. There were emails between Karen and board members openly discussing retrofitting property lines. They talked about drafting a soft boundary map that included Manning's ridge lot for community view shed protection. There were jokes about how Gerald, the previous owner, was too stubborn to deal with, and that once he kicks the bucket, we can just fold it into HOA and nobody will notice. One email from Karen sent 2 years ago read, "That ridge lot will screw our resale value if someone builds up there. We need it undeveloped or controlled. I don't care how we do it." Another read, "Legal can't move unless we have paper on it. Talk to Victor. Maybe he can draft a ghost deed we can push into our archives. Use Gerald's old signature if needed. Just something we can throw in court to stall. Gerald's signature, forged." Karen knew exactly what she was doing. We also found an internal memo draft titled Emergency Visual Impact Preservation Claim Template. Basically, a blueprint for how to fabricate environmental justifications to stop construction. There was even a file folder marked Manning Media Assets, which included photos of my construction site, taken before Karen ever confronted me publicly. The pièce de résistance. A Slack log where Karen joked about her time undercover, spent the day as Liz from Lakeview Living, LOL. You should have seen his face. He had no idea. Place is nice though. NGL? If we can't stop it, I might just apply for Airbnb rules and squeeze him later. That message alone made Nina mutter, "We're going to torch them." We backed up everything, triple copies, encrypted. Then Nina began prepping a counterclaim for fraud, document tampering, and tortious interference with contract. Tommy agreed to submit a sworn affidavit and testify if needed. I didn't sleep much that night, but not from anxiety. It was adrenaline. I wasn't just defending my property anymore. I was going after the people who tried to hijack it. Karen thought she could fake her way into owning my land, but now I had proof, cold, hard, digital proof that her entire game was built on lies. And I was about to flip the board. Nina didn't wait. The morning after we finished going through Tommy's treasure trove of HOA dirt, she filed a counter lawsuit in Placer County Superior Court. Fraud, forgery, defamation, intentional interference with business relationships. It was a legal brick through their perfectly trimmed window. We named Karen Dupre personally. Also included were 3 other board members, the HOA as a corporate entity, and a John Doe placeholder, just in case one of her minions decided to get creative later. The court accepted the case. A hearing was scheduled for preliminary discovery, and for the first time since this circus started, the momentum tilted in our favor. I half expected Karen to back off, maybe go silent, maybe lawyer up and hide behind HOA spokespeople. But no, she doubled down. The HOA released a public statement calling my lawsuit a desperate attempt to distract from unauthorized development and a malicious attack on a civic institution. The same day, a new wave of posts hit social media. More manipulated photos, blurry screenshots of building violations, and even a damn aerial drone shot that made my site look like I'd excavated a crater on the moon. What they didn't realize was that we had the originals. Nina had already submitted metadata-stamped images, verified video, and witness statements. And thanks to Tommy's internal files, we had receipts. Literal receipts. Expense reports for the drone flight HOA paid. The court issued a discovery order. The HOA was now required to turn over all original documents related to the land parcel they claimed, including the supposed 2007 annexation record, Gerald's alleged signature, and any internal board votes or minutes tied to it. That's when things got interesting. 2 weeks later, at a discovery hearing, their attorney, some smooth-talking Malibu transplant who thought using words like synergy and encumbrance zone made him sound smarter, presented a manila folder of printed documents. Nina raised an eyebrow. "These are scans," she said flatly. "They're high resolution," the HOA lawyer replied, as if pixel count replaced authenticity. "We asked for originals," Nina said, flipping a page. "This notarization seal has no serial number, and this date stamp? That format wasn't used in county docs after 2012. The judge looked mildly annoyed. "Counsel, do you have original physical evidence?" The lawyer coughed. "They may be in the HOA's secure storage. We'll retrieve them." He never did. Nina filed a motion for forensic review. The court approved it. Our document examiner ran handwriting comparisons. Signatures on the so-called 2007 annexation agreement didn't match any of Gerald's records. One of them, in fact, was traced directly from an old newsletter he'd signed 10 years ago, copied and pasted. Amateur hour. Then came the metadata report, the HOA's parcel map showing my land as part of their boundary. It had been created 5 weeks ago in Adobe Illustrator. The source file even contained layer labels like Fake Line Copy 2 and Ridge Overlay, Expand. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. We submitted everything. That's when the courthouse phone line started buzzing. Not publicly, quietly, subtly. Nina got a call from a friend at the clerk's office. Someone upstairs wasn't happy. "Your case is making people nervous," the clerk said. "There's talk of a procedural audit. And you didn't hear this from me, but Judge Barrett, the one who signed the original stop work order, he's related to Dupre." That stopped me cold. "What kind of related?" I asked. "His wife's niece. Karen's her aunt." It clicked. The absurdly fast injunction, the vague wording, the unusual timing of the review session that led to the construction halt. All of it. Nina filed a motion for judicial recusal the same day, attaching the familial connection and citing clear conflict of interest. The motion hit like a hammer. Barrett recused himself within 48 hours. The case was reassigned to Judge Marilyn Corday, a woman known for being blunt, incorruptible, and allergic to HOA nonsense. Meanwhile, the HOA board issued a weirdly panicked memo to its members claiming external forces were trying to undermine the integrity of neighborhood unity. They begged for support, donations, loyalty, and fear. But it was too late. We'd cracked the wall. I wasn't just building a house anymore. I was dismantling a racket. The day Judge Corday took over the case, everything changed. Her first act from the bench was to order an immediate forensic review of all HOA documents related to my property. Originals, copies, emails, internal votes, everything. She gave them 72 hours to comply. When their lawyer stammered something about confidentiality protocols, she leaned forward and asked, "Are you asserting executive privilege on behalf of a homeowners association?" His silence said it all. Karen must have felt the heat, because that same night, the HOA's website quietly went offline. Their official Facebook page deleted every post related to my case, but screenshots had already been circulating like wildfire. Reddit threads popped up. "When your HOA becomes a cartel," "Karen Gone Wild Sierra Edition," and "Cottage Gate." Local news caught wind. A reporter from Channel 9 showed up at the bottom of the hill and tried to interview me. I declined. Nina advised no public statements, but I noticed he already had a drone crew filming the site from a public road. Their story aired the next night, complete with side-by-side comparisons of the HOA's fake map and the real county GIS data. Karen's face was blurred, but her voice in one HOA Zoom leak wasn't. She was caught saying, "That house is a stain on our landscape. If we can't stop it legally, we stall him until he's broke." Same result. That soundbite was gold. But the real blow came when Nina got a call from the district attorney's office. Not a polite inquiry, not a warning, a subpoena request. Apparently, the DA had launched a preliminary investigation into the HOA for fraudulent filings, misuse of nonprofit funds, forgery, and attempted real estate seizure under false pretenses. And they wanted our files. We gave them everything. Even better, Nina arranged for Tommy, our insider, the former treasurer, to meet with them under protection. He walked them through years of shady accounting, ghost vendor payments, shell maintenance contracts, and a laughably transparent invoice for legal research services paid out to a firm that hadn't existed since 2014. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. The DA's investigator told us off the record that the HOA hadn't just faked documents. They'd tried to backdate them into the county record system by bribing a former clerk who now worked at a private title services firm in Sacramento. That clerk refused, but the fact that they'd tried, that moved the whole case into criminal conspiracy territory. Meanwhile, Karen went dark. No HOA emails, no press statements. She stopped appearing at community events. Rumor had it she was lawyering up, but we couldn't confirm until the bombshell hit. One of my construction guys, Luis, called me at 8 in the morning, sounding freaked out. "Boss, you might want to see this." He texted me a video. Security footage from the previous night showed someone creeping through the construction site with a flashlight. They wore a hoodie and gloves and spent 10 minutes near the trailer where I kept sensitive documents. Nothing was stolen, but they had clearly tried to break in. We found pry marks on the lock, muddy footprints near the rear panel. The sheriff came out, took a report, and reviewed the footage. They couldn't ID the figure. Face was hidden, but the height, build, and gait, it sure as hell looked familiar. I handed them a flash drive with the footage and filed a formal complaint. Nina followed up with a request for enhanced forensic analysis. We weren't accusing anyone directly, yet. But now, in court, we had a growing arsenal. Forensically debunked HOA documents, internal correspondence admitting to obstruction, evidence of failed bribery, an insider witness, a break-in attempt, and then there was Karen's own words, caught on video as Elizabeth Harper smiling and saying, "You don't want to build a monument to greed above our community pool, do you?" That line didn't age well. By the end of the week, the DA's office formally opened a criminal case against the Ferncrest Highlands HOA. They called it People versus Ferncrest Highlands HOA et al. Multiple counts of forgery, fraud, conspiracy, and unlawful interference with private property rights. I printed a copy of the indictment and tacked it to the inside of my trailer. It hung next to my blueprints. Just a little reminder of the house I was still going to build. The indictment changed everything. What was once a petty HOA scuffle had turned into a full-blown public scandal, and for the first time, people started calling me Sir, without sarcasm. Karen's name became radioactive. The Channel 9 segment got picked up by a regional NBC affiliate. They ran a piece titled, "The Empire of Grass, How a Suburban HOA Tried to Steal a Mountainside." The footage of Karen in her Elizabeth Harper getup, cut together with court graphics and screenshots of the fake map files, was downright cinematic. Then came the arrest. Tuesday morning, Karen was hosting a so-called Landscape Harmony Subcommittee meeting in the HOA clubhouse when two county detectives walked in and calmly placed her under arrest. The charges: attempted land fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and unlawful surveillance. That last one? They had tied her to the drone footage and the unauthorized tracking of my build site. She didn't resist. But the footage of her being led out, still wearing a pastel sweater set and holding a Starbucks cup, hit the news like a bomb. HOA members stared in shock. One woman cried. Another pulled out her phone like she'd been waiting 5 years for this moment. Karen was booked and released on bail. Her mugshot didn't help. She looked exactly like you'd imagine, stunned, furious, betrayed by the universe. But that was just the appetizer. The court ruling came that Thursday. Judge Corday issued a sweeping decision. The HOA had no legal claim to my parcel. The 2007 annexation document was ruled a deliberate fabrication, and the temporary stop work order was fraudulently obtained through material misrepresentation. The judge ordered it immediately rescinded and construction reinstated with prejudice, meaning they couldn't challenge it again. Then came the kicker. The court awarded me damages. Not just legal costs, but compensation for construction delays, material storage fees, contractual penalties from my clients, reputational damage to my business. The figure was in the 6 figures. The judge even noted in her summary that the HOA's conduct had been malicious, premeditated, and corrosive to public trust. That phrase stuck. The ruling went public. Local real estate blogs picked it up. Contractors started messaging me with horror stories of their own. I even got an email from a retired judge in Oregon who offered to write a guest op-ed about HOA overreach. Meanwhile, the Ferncrest Highlands HOA began to implode. 2 board members resigned within 48 hours. The treasurer denied any knowledge, then admitted under oath that he had signed blank checks at Karen's request. One of the secretaries tried to throw Karen under the bus in a last-ditch affidavit, only to be hit with perjury charges for lying about the document backdating timeline. And then the Attorney General's office stepped in. They began an audit into all nonprofit governance activities of the HOA. Turned out this wasn't their first rodeo, just the first time someone fought back hard enough to crack it open. At the next community meeting, open to all Ferncrest residents, the crowd turned into a mob. People shouted, demanded resignations, demanded explanations. One man threw a binder of bylaws on the floor and yelled, "You let this lunatic try to seize someone's land because she didn't like the view." I wasn't there, but I watched the recording. It ended with a unanimous vote. Ferncrest Highlands HOA was officially dissolved. Their accounts were frozen pending civil asset forfeiture. Their legal insurance dropped them. The HOA website now redirected to a 404 page. Karen, her trial date was set. She was forbidden from contacting me, my crew, or entering within 500 feet of my property. She tried to file a countersuit for emotional distress. The court tossed it out the same day it was filed. As for me, I got a certified letter from the county recorder confirming, once and for all, that parcel number 047-661-038-000 belonged to Trevor Manning, and no part of it, past, present, or future, had ever been legally annexed into Ferncrest Highlands. I pinned that letter next to the indictment on my trailer wall, right above the coffee maker. It made for damn good reading in the morning. 4 months. That's how long the site had sat in silence. Just an idle skeleton of rebar, plywood, and potential, slowly collecting pine needles and frustration. But now the silence was gone. The morning after the court ruling, my crew rolled in like it was opening day at Disneyland. Trucks, tools, forklifts, the whole circus. Luis climbed out of the cab of the crane with the biggest damn smile I'd ever seen. I think the man hugged every 2x6 on the lot. It felt like resurrection. First order of business. Finish the framing. Then the roofing. Then the poured concrete deck that overlooked the lake. I made sure I was there when that pour happened. I stood barefoot on the edge of the formwork and watched as the slurry filled the mold inch by inch, smoothing out months of stress with every gallon. That wasn't just concrete. That was victory mixed at 4,000 psi. Neighbors from down the hill started showing up. Not the HOA loyalists, but actual human beings with empathy and snacks. A retired couple brought us cookies. A local teacher handed me a thank you card. One guy even offered to pressure wash the driveway once we finished, just because someone finally put those Fern Crest fascists in their place. We didn't talk politics. We just worked. I kept my head down and built. And every hammer strike sounded like a screw you to everyone who tried to stop me. But while the structure rose, the fallout down below kept tumbling. Karen had become an online meme. People were remixing her HOA arrest video with music from Curb Your Enthusiasm and The People's Court. The subreddit dedicated to HOA tyranny stories now had a weekly segment called Karen's Corner. I didn't share those, but I watched every single one. More quietly, I started hearing from other victims. A landscape architect in Nevada City messaged me about a similar HOA stunt where they tried to block solar panels. A widow in Oregon said her HOA sued her for painting her shutters the wrong shade of blue after her husband died. And one guy from Colorado, he was being fined $50 a day because his truck was too rugged looking. The stories kept coming, and they all ended the same way. I wish I'd fought back like you. Meanwhile, Nina kept pushing. The DA's case against the HOA turned into a prosecutorial treasure hunt. They found off-books expense accounts, forged maintenance logs, even a scholarship fund that mysteriously funneled into someone's niece's tuition. The state began legislative reviews on HOA oversight, prompted directly by the media storm. And me? I finally moved my trailer off the build site, took it to a storage lot just outside town, didn't need it anymore. I was no longer fighting to exist. I was just existing. Sometimes I'd sit on the unfinished deck at sunset with a beer and just stare at the lake. No noise, no HOA drones, no clipboard-wielding zealots in branded vests. Just wind, water, and silence. One evening, a truck pulled into the gravel lot. Out stepped Gerald's grandson, Nick. We'd only talked once right after the sale. He handed me a six-pack and sat down on the half-finished porch. My grandfather hated bullies, he said. If he knew what they pulled after he sold you this place, he'd have been proud you didn't fold. We didn't say much else. We just drank. The foundation was solid, the permits were clean, and, finally, the view was mine again. 6 months later, the house was finished. 3 stories of steel-reinforced defiance, wrapped in cedar and glass, perched on the ridge like it had always belonged there. Every window framed the lake. Every wall told a story. The insulation wasn't just thermal, it was emotional. This place wasn't just a home, it was a monument. We had a small gathering the day I moved in. Just the crew, a few friends, and some of the neighbors who'd supported me. Luis grilled steaks out back. Tommy, the ex-treasurer turned whistleblower, brought beer and a new baby. Nina showed up late, holding a binder under one arm and wearing a leather jacket like a lawyer from a Quentin Tarantino film. "I brought you a housewarming gift," she said. It was a certified court document. People of the state of California vs. Fern Crest Highlands HOA et al. Final judgment entered. Guilty, fines, restitution. Karen was sentenced to 18 months in county jail, followed by 3 years probation. 3 other board members received suspended sentences and fines. The HOA as a legal entity was dissolved permanently, its remaining assets redistributed toward infrastructure improvements in the county, minus legal fees. I framed the document and hung it next to the fireplace. A few weeks later, a county clerk stopped by to personally deliver a bronze property plaque. It read, "Private property not subject to HOA governance." She smiled and said it was a courtesy gift from the assessor's office. I bolted it to the front gate myself. As the house settled into silence, I found myself settling too. The nightmares stopped. I started sleeping full nights. Clients returned. New ones came in, drawn by the story. My company bounced back stronger than before. Apparently, beating the HOA mafia made me good PR. Occasionally, I still got emails from people across the country. Most just wanted advice. Some wanted vengeance. Some wanted permission to resist, to push back, to reclaim something they'd lost under the boots of petty bureaucrats. I told them all the same thing. You can't reason with a system built to ignore you. You have to break it open. I didn't plan to become an icon, I just wanted to build a house. But the mountain had other plans. One afternoon, I drove past the old Ferncrest Highlands entrance. The sign was gone. Just 2 empty brick columns where once they'd proudly declared a scenic, secure community. The security cameras were gone too. In their place, a single hand-painted sign stuck into the dirt by the curb, reading, "Beware of Karen." I laughed so hard I had to pull over. Later that night, I stood on my deck with a cup of coffee, watching the lights blink far below. Somewhere down there, behind those perfect fences and manicured driveways, a lesson had been learned. And up here, peace. Just me, the lake, and the wind. No HOA, no Karen. Just freedom.